Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Business of Inner Peace. I'm Erin Jean, your host, and I'm so happy you are here. Really, nothing brings me more joy than getting to create this podcast. I love sharing this part of myself with all of you and sharing the stories of others. So thank you so much for listening, because this is truly a big bright spot in my life. So today we are going to be talking about a book called You² by Price Pritchett. And I was recently introduced to this book, and truly it is a tiny little book. It's almost more of a pamphlet. It's really small, but it packs quite a punch. And I connected with it so much because I realized I could see my own journey spelled out so well in this book. He does such a beautiful job of explaining making big changes in your life. So grab your favorite beverage and listen in.
Welcome to the Business of Inner Peace. I'm your host, Erin Jean, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's pretend we're sitting in my living room enjoying a cup of coffee or tea and getting to know each other just a little better. That's what I love. I love getting to hear your story. I love feeling connected by the spirit of understanding that our stories bring. Today, I'm sharing some of my story, but I hope someday soon you'll be telling me yours. Listen, I know that you're feeling overwhelmed with life, and nothing is exactly how you'd like it to be. Your marriage is not what you hoped for, motherhood is harder than you imagined, and you've lost yourself somewhere in the mix of responsibilities. Well, if you're ready to bring some more peace and joy into your life, reconnect with God who made you, and start living a life you love, then grab your cup of coffee or tea and let's dive into today's show.
All right, let's dive into this amazing little book called You² by Price Pritchett. Like I mentioned earlier, don't let the size fool you. It may be short, but it packs a powerful punch. And if anything, I hope that the size encourages you to pick this up, because you can read it in one sitting, or you can easily read it in just a week with a few pages a day. So, what is the big idea here? Well, Pritchett is all about making these huge, amazing jumps in our personal and professional lives. And he's not talking about baby steps or slow progress. Nope, he is talking about quantum leaps. Those big, exciting changes that can transform your life overnight. The main message of the book, it's pretty simple. We need to break free from our usual way of thinking. Can I get an amen? It is our way of thinking, our perspective, that keeps us so stuck in life. So we need to get away from our usual way of thinking. And you know how we often set small, realistic goals for ourselves? In fact, I've said this many times before, like just focusing on getting 1% better every day, it's growth. And it's true, right? If you are a ship and you just change your course by 1 degree, you're going to be a completely different destination within a few months than you would be, right? Otherwise, had you not made the change. So small changes can have huge impacts, but there's also something that can really hinder us if we only sort of think in our mind that small changes are all that's possible. And I really love this book because huge quantum leaps, big changes are absolutely very possible. So Pritchett says that it's holding us back. these realistic small goals that we set for ourselves. And instead, he wants us to think bigger, like way bigger. So it's like this. Imagine you're trying to jump over a stream. And if you just focus on taking a slightly bigger step, you might still end up with wet feet. But if you imagine leaping to the other side in one big jump, you're much more likely to make it across. In fact, he says, when you're jumping, we don't think about all of the steps that are happening in the air, right? You're jumping focused on your landing point. And I think that that's crucial here, is focusing on what you want to create. Focus on the landing point. And this kind of ties into what we were talking about in the last episode about creating these dreams, right? This all connects. And if you can tell, I just love it. I love personal growth so much. I love creating a life you love so much. So that's why I geek out on books like this. Anyhow, this is what You² is all about. It's about making that big leap in your life, in your relationships, in your career, whatever area you're wanting to improve. It's about dreaming big and then making those dreams happen. And you know what? This idea fits perfectly with what I do in my coaching sessions. It's all about unlocking your potential and making those big positive changes in your life. So, are you ready to take a quantum leap? Let's explore together how we can do just that. There are 5 key concepts in the book that I wanted to talk about with you today. And the first one is embracing uncertainty. So we're talking about taking risks, right? Pritchett says that we need to get comfy with being a little uncomfortable. It's like when you're learning to swim. At some point, you have to let go of the edge of the pool, right? Because that's where the magic happens. In my own life, I really remember that as I'm looking backward and I can see this huge amount of change that I created within my marriage and really, truly within myself. It was when I just kind of went all in on me. I went all in on creating something new. I let go of the proverbial edge of the pool. And it truly is where the magic happened. And yeah, it was a little bit scary because I didn't know what my outcome would be. I didn't really know for sure that I was going to save my marriage. I just knew for sure that I had a problem of my own, that I didn't love myself and I needed to figure it out. And I knew what I was doing wasn't working. So this first step is just kind of going all in. So I want you to think about any success that you have created in your life in any area and see if you can think of a time that you took a huge leap and it paid off. So the second point that I wanted to talk about is focusing on the end result, which I kind of made mention of that a little bit ago. It's a cool idea. And instead of getting all tangled up in the how, Pritchett says that we should focus on the what. So it's like if you're planning a vacation, you don't need to know every detail of how you'll get there. You just need to know where you want to go. Or I really love the idea of building a house, right? You start off with this idea of what you want the house to be like and look like. And you have to make a vision of it, right? Like, where do you want the house to be located and how many bedrooms do you want it to have and how many bathrooms and Where do you want the kitchen to be at? And all of that. That's just the beginning point, right? And then the next step is the blueprinting, like actually getting detailed in what you want. But you don't have to figure out every single step, like what contractor you're going to hire and the paint colors and just the real estate piece and buying the land and all of that stuff. That doesn't have to be figured out in the very beginning when you're deciding you want the dream house, right? Where it starts is with the vision. And so I love this because in my coaching sessions, we often talk about relationship goals. And at the very beginning, when I'm working with a client, one of my first questions is always, what do you want to create? And it's twofold because one, we need to have a vision of where we're going, but two, there's power in intention. So I'm always asking someone to do that, to really decide what kind of a marriage they want, because it's important to know what we're aiming for. And we don't need to worry about every little step. We can focus on the kind of relationship we want to have. And we also don't have to get bogged down by reality. Often I see people get tripped up and held back because they might say something like, oh, I want a really loving, intimate relationship with my husband, but that's not going to happen because he won't have sex with me. Like, what? There's steps between what you want and where you are. So don't let the reality of where you are kind of kill everything, right? Don't let that hold you back. And we can do that in so many ways of things that we're trying to create in our life. But it's amazing how much easier things become when you have a clear picture of what you want. For me, my journey, like I mentioned earlier, really began with, I want to learn how to love myself. I can see that that is the number one problem. I do not love myself. And so I was really clear on that. I had no idea what this journey of pursuing that was going to bring. And one of the very, very happy side benefits was that it brought me a brand new marriage, which was amazing. Married to the same man, but he's not the same man. So getting crystal clear on what you want to create, it's like the fuel to get everything started. Okay, the third point I wanted to talk about from his book is trusting your instincts. This is something that I love because Pritchett is all about trusting your gut. And it's so important, especially as an empath. It's probably one of the number one things that I've learned as I've gotten older is really listening to that still small voice, this inner knowing that God has given me. And I'm amazed, even to this day, that it's actually, I was correct. And when I listen to it and I ask questions of others about, this is what I'm getting, is that correct? They always affirm it. And so it's so important to just not minimize or silence, your gut, your inner knowing, the still small voice, whatever you want to call it, right? It's that voice that can sometimes say, go for it. Or it's the voice that can sometimes say, stop, brakes, like, don't do this. And you always hear people tell stories of, like, especially when bad things happened, like, oh, I had a bad feeling. I didn't really want to go ahead with it, but I felt like I needed to. And then sure enough, it didn't turn out good. That's ignoring this little voice, right? Your gut. But you can have the flip side of it. It can be really positive too, like listen to it and good things that can happen. So it ties in beautifully with the work that I do in hypnotherapy, because when we tap into your subconscious, we're really connecting with intuition. We're connecting with the still small voice. We're connecting with God, and it's powerful stuff. Point 4 that I want to talk about is challenging assumptions. So here's where it gets really interesting. Pritchett asks us to question everything we think we know. It's like spring cleaning for your mind. So in my coaching sessions, we often uncover beliefs that are holding people back. And what's funny is they are beliefs that they usually didn't even realize that they had. Often a belief like feeling like you're not good enough or that you can't change. Pritchett would say, challenge that. And you know what? When we do challenge it, amazing things happen. And I would even offer to you that just noticing it is also very powerful. Like, notice some of these thought processes that you have and question them. Like he says, challenge them, because it's like, where is that coming from? Is that true? It can really bring you down a powerful path of change. Okay, step 5, or I should say point 5 that I want to talk about, is using imagination to create your future. I can't say enough good things about imagination. It is so, so powerful. And to be honest, it's probably the number one thing that helped transform me from the inside out. The beautiful thing about our subconscious mind is it does not know the difference between reality and imagination. And so if you can get really good at imagination and visualizing all kinds of things, your subconscious mind begins to believe that that is real. And for me in particular, I have gone into traumatic memories, and I've envisioned taking care of myself and inviting Jesus to come in with me to take care of me. And the act of doing that alone, really imagining every step that Jesus and I were taking to make sure that version of Aaron that was in that traumatic moment was well taken care of, that had an energetic shift and a physical shift inside of me. And it really helped me to let go of a lot of the trauma. And now when I think about a lot of those situations that I've done this imaginative work in, I feel completely different about them. They have just become facts. And this is cool to use for our benefit, especially when we're trying to create something new, when we're trying to take a quantum leap. Having this imagination piece is huge. So Pritchett talks about the power of imagination, and it isn't just daydreaming. It's about really seeing and feeling the emotional feeling of your future success. As I mentioned, I've loved using visualization for myself. I use these techniques with my clients, and it's like watching a movie of your best life and then making it happen. And that's whether you're dealing with a past event or you're creating something that you want in the future. So let's try a quick exercise together. Of course, if you're driving, don't do this. But if you're not driving, join me. I want you to close your eyes and imagine your perfect day. What does it look like? How do you feel? What time would you wake up? Would you have an alarm clock wake you up? Or would you wake up naturally on your own? Where would you be? Would you be in a beautiful spot in nature? Who would you be with? What kind of activities would you do? And how would it make you feel? Oh, I love it. That is the power of imagination at work. So these concepts from You² are so powerful because they're all about unlocking your potential. It's not about making small changes. It's about transforming your life in big, exciting ways. And that is really, right, what we all want. Remember, you've got all of this potential inside you. And Pritchett's book just gives us some tools to let it out. So, are you ready to make your quantum leap? I'm excited for you to get started. I want to share one more thing with you. So, Pritchett starts You² with this amazing story about a fly. So, picture this: a fly is trapped in a room, desperately trying to escape through a closed window, and it keeps bumping against the glass over and over, exhausting itself when there's an open door just a few feet away. Does that sound familiar at all? Like, how many times have we found ourselves doing the same thing repeatedly, hoping for a different result? It's like banging our heads against a wall, right? This fly story, it's a wake-up call for all of us. It's telling us to stop, to take a step back, and to look at the bigger picture. Are we so focused on one way of doing things that we're missing other opportunities? Again, I'd love to give you an example from my own life. When I was trying to save my marriage, I was going to therapy. I was reading books, self-help books on marriage. I was attending marriage retreats. I literally was the fly bumping against the window over and over, and none of it was working. And I truly was almost dead. I filed for divorce and I became suicidal. But then I took this different approach. I realized that I was the problem. I didn't love myself. And I started exploring alternative therapies like EFT and hypnotherapy and emotional and energetic release exercises and so much more. And everything in my marriage began to change. It did. It felt like magic. It was amazing. But what I discovered is actually became a repeatable process. And it's a process that I now teach my students every day. In fact, if you find yourself in a similar situation and you want a better marriage and you just feel like that fly banging against a window day after day, I want to invite you to head over to www.erinjeanlove.com and watch my free masterclass so you can get a better understanding of this work that I do with hurting women. That link will also be in the show notes. So coming back to the book, how can we apply this to our daily lives? The first thing that I really feel like we can do is pause and reflect. If you find yourself stuck in any kind of situation, take a moment to step back and assess. Are you the fly bumping against the window? Step 2, look for other options. There's usually more than one way to solve a problem. So what open doors might you be overlooking? For me, this is where I got really open, very open-minded to different therapies that were not so traditional because I could identify that what I was doing wasn't working. So where can you get more open? Where can you be more open-minded to an alternative way of doing things? Step 3 is being willing to change direction. So sometimes the best path forward is in a completely different direction than where you've been heading. For me, right, my focus was entirely on my marriage for a very long time, trying to fix my marriage, focused that was the problem. It wasn't until I shifted my focus, began to focus on myself, realizing that I needed help because I did not love myself, that it actually got me to the place that I really wanted to go. Step 4, embrace new approaches. Don't be afraid to try something new, which I already kind of mentioned, right? That's that open-mindedness. So that's where growth happens. And step 5, listen to your intuition, that still small voice. Our gut feeling can guide us toward those open doors that we might not see at first. So just remember, it's not about how hard you're working, but about working smart. Don't exhaust yourself doing the same thing over and over if it's not getting you where you want to be. And the next time you feel stuck, think of that fly. Are you bumping against a closed window? Or is there an open door nearby that you just haven't noticed yet? Trust me, making that shift in perspective can lead to amazing breakthroughs in your life. All right, friends, we are wrapping up our chat about You² by Price Pritchett. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned today. You know, Pritchett says something really powerful in his book. He writes, most people operate with a mindset that assumes success comes one step at a time, striving to make incremental gains in their performance. But your life simply does not have to operate that way. Isn't that mind-blowing? It's totally counterintuitive to everything we get taught in society. We're so used to thinking that we have to climb the ladder one rung at a time. But Pritchett is telling us we can leap to the top if we dare to think differently. Think about all the concepts we've talked about today: embracing uncertainty, focusing on the end result, trusting your instincts, challenging your assumptions, and using your imagination. These aren't just nice ideas, they're tools for making those quantum leaps in your life. So here's my challenge to you. I want you to take a moment right now and think about an area in your life where you've been taking baby steps. Maybe it's in your relationships, your career, or your personal growth. Now, imagine what it would look like if you made a quantum leap in that area. What would change? How would you feel? Remember, you don't have to settle for incremental progress. You have the power to transform your life in big and exciting ways. The women that come into my program literally begin to change their lives in just a matter of weeks. But the first step is that you need to believe it's possible and be willing to take the leap. So I highly recommend picking up a copy of You² if you haven't already. Like I said, it's a super quick read, but trust me, it'll stick with you for a long time. Thanks so much for listening today. Here's to your quantum leaps and the amazing future that you're going to create. As you know, I love ending our podcast episodes with a prayer. So I'm going to pray for all of you out there listening, and I hope that you are blessed by this episode. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for every person that is listening on the other side of this podcast. I pray that you would bless their lives, that you would give them new vision and clarity for what you want to partner with them to create in their lives. And whatever they create, whatever quantum leaps they take, would it bring glory and honor to your name? And would it spread love and light across the earth? Amen.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're feeling blessed by the content here, the number one way you can show me is by leaving me a written review of the show. I'd be forever grateful. Knowing that you're out there listening helps me know that I'm truly living out God's purpose in my life. The other thing you can do is take a screenshot of this episode, share it with a friend, or better yet, tag me on your Instagram stories. Remember, you are seen, known, and loved. May God richly bless you today. All my love, Erin Jean.